All right, just a quick note before we get started with the video here. I was going to try and make this like the first of a series of gear reviews, but I ultimately decided against it because I didn't want to kind of paint myself into some kind of a corner down the road where this channel became all about reviewing gear and stuff like that. It's not really my bag. Really the point of this channel was just for me to nerd out on drums and drumming and my gear and share it with the rest of you. And speaking of the rest of you, since I posted the snare drum video, this channel has taken a significant jump. Just quadrupled the number of subscribers. Now, the numbers are not astronomical, but it's a very rapid amount of growth in a very short time. As far as my, 6, 7, maybe 8 years on YouTube doing anything like that, or doing anything at all on YouTube, really. So, just wanted to thank everybody for your interest, and let's get on with the show. Thanks for coming out. Alrighty. So for a number of years, I've been using a cable remote hi-hat as my primary hi-hat stand. I've been doing this since about late 98 or early 99. Basically, I was on a destroyer in the Navy, and we went on our med cruise, certainly during 98 because we went to Portugal for the World's Fair. When I got back from my med cruise, one of the first things I went out and bought was a DW5000 series cable remote hi-hat stand. That became my first centered remote hi-hat, an idea that I had come up with while fantasizing about what kind of drum sets I could put together once I finally had the money for all this stuff. And now eventually I did buy a drum set, and I kind of muddled my way through without that centered hi-hat. I mean, I've been playing drums for several years, crossing my hands and doing it that way. But the way I wanted to set up having my toms around the snare drum and not cascading over the top of the hi-hat, kind of like Neil Peart style, I thought it'd be better if I could just keep the toms right around the snare drum and have the hi-hat directly above that out in front of me. It wouldn't be that much of a reach. And I could bring it out into a position where I could get to it with both hands without having to cross over. Eventually, that DW5000 series hi-hat was replaced with a 9000 series. It seems like either the cables, when you put them in that particular position, wear out faster, or something just makes them sluggish, but it wasn't working for me. Now, at the time, DW had come out with a new critter. It was the 9550 universal remote. And instead of using a cable, this used the remote side of a double pedal to drive a shaft that would turn in the 9000 series hi-hat stand. I really wanted to get my hands on one of these, but I balked at the price. So I ended up buying the cable. The 9000 cable remote was considerably cheaper, and I still have that on the kit. It's now on this large configuration, which we will be talking about at some other time. It's now serving as a remote right foot hi-hat holding a couple of China cymbals. So if I'm not using that as my main hi-hat anymore, what am I using? I'm using a 9550 universal remote, which I just picked up recently. When I first put a hi-hat here using a cable remote, with the pedal down here, I'd have to loop the cable up and over and kind of bring it back up underneath the main hi-hat assembly there. It seems like whenever I positioned it that way, no matter how hard I tried, there was always just a little bit of resistance in there, at least on the downstroke. On the upstroke, it still comes up perfectly well. But it always felt like it was fighting me just a little bit. It was definitely never as natural and easy a feel as just a regular straight hi-hat stand. Now, I've done some demos since where I've been able to set up my drums in such a way using a straight, normal hi-hat stand and still be able to bring the toms around underneath that, kind of in a Terry Bozzio style. As you can see, I do quite a number of things in a Terry Bozzio style, at least when it comes to setting up my drums. Now, instead of running that cable, I just have a nice, neat little shaft that connects from the pedal straight to the bass unit, and it also makes it a little bit easier to transport, because when I take this thing apart, with the DW pedal you can remove the cable and kind of roll things up, but you still have to roll up a cable. This stuff, super easy, super clean. You undo a couple of things and it goes right into the bag or the case. And then the main unit, I mean, it's a chrome stick with hi-hat stuff in it. It's real easy to deal with. But the action on this thing is direct. I mean, just... My left foot isn't as strong as my right foot. Let's see how fast this thing can go. I really need to work on my hi-hat footwork. So it's been really nice to have that where I can have something I can reach very easily still without getting in the way of my tom-toms, and I kind of have this nice little command wedge that's pretty common to all of my drum setups for over 20 years now. In terms of being able to accomplish that job as a cable or as a remote hi-hat stand, it's certainly very good at that. And I'll probably be looking to get a couple more because, I'll show you something. That original 5000 series hi-hat, this is what's become of it. I basically took the cable equipment and attachments off of the pedal. I actually had to, I think I had to cut part of the casting off on one of them. So I could basically stack up the remote unit on top of the pedal unit and just run the cable straight through and have this wee little hi-hat stand. The thought of which was that I could get this thing, like Grant Collins, I could get this thing down next to a bass drum, and instead of running my hi-hats, remote hi-hats off at a distance, I could just have this little booger down by a bass drum. Now, with my normal setup, since I like kind of a one-up, two-down configuration on a regular gigging setup, it fits okay in that spot because there's no tom-tom above it. The final height of the thing with the pull rod and everything like that ended up being too high to actually fit it underneath a row of tom-toms. I think eventually I will use some more of these drive shaft remotes to run those kind of foot sound only hi-hats, get them off into the distance. I should be pretty happy with the way those work. Because of the limitations of being able to try and chop a hi-hat down any further than this, and I'm not going to ruin too many hi-hat stands trying to do this experiment. I don't have an unlimited supply of this stuff. So I think just cut right to the chase, get a couple more of these stands right here, and then that will be done. One thing we should talk about here is whether or not this thing lives up to the name universal remote. When most people use a cable remote hi-hat stand, usually the plan is to get it from a pedal over here and put it over onto the other side of their drum kit. And of course the cable allows that to happen quite easily. This thing, we've got a bit of a problem. Number one, the only reason I can even use this as my center mounted main hi-hat is because I don't have another bass drum on my left foot. If I had another bass drum there, this cymbal stand can't accomplish that. Similarly, because there is at least my main bass drum here, it also cannot get over to the other side of this kit from this pedal position. And I think that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks to this entire system. Yeah, it's probably the best in the world at what it does, but what it does has some limitations. And I've got some ideas on how that can be fixed and could possibly be done in a way that would make a product like this appeal to something more than just DW drummers, artists, or fanboys like myself. And I won't get too much into the specifics of it here. I think it might be fodder for another video. And I'll have to kind of go through my inventory and see what I can come up with in order to play this trick right. But I'll give you a hint. If attempting to get over the top of bass drums was factored into this design, I believe this would be a much shorter unit, and this would be a much taller unit. So some of the details about this pedal, and actually I was almost kind of infuriated when I first saw this until I realized why they did what they did. Normally a DW remote pedal, like drive pedal like this, would have these ends right here and this end machined into a 1/4-inch square output shaft that would then fit either inside their shaft equipment or inside the universal joints here. Instead, these are smooth round posts on both sides, no flat spots, no key. It's got this adapter that gets you from the round to the square. You know, what's to prevent that from slipping loose during regular playing, and then you don't have your pedal at all. And I realize on a bass drum that might be a problem because you're dealing with so much repeated impact, and you'd literally be kind of hammering on this joint to use it as a bass drum pedal. As a hi-hat, even as a primary hi-hat, most of what you're doing is holding the cymbals closed. And even if you're repeatedly smacking them together, the amount of force and resistance you're dealing with there is not the same as hammering on a bass drum all the time. And in any hi-hat, you've already got a smooth round point of failure in the hi-hat clutch. This little booger here could come undone at any time. So I learned not to worry too much about that. I got even less infuriated when I realized why they did it this way. It's your pedal height adjustment. You can undo the 2 little screws here and independently set the height of your footboard without concerning yourself with the position of the output shaft. Okay, that makes perfect sense there, because there's no other way to do that unless you basically did the same thing on the hub of the sprocket here, but that would still be introducing the same concerns about having a smooth this, that, or the other against another smooth this, that, or the other. This is the 9000 series pedal unit that you get with the thing. And if you'll observe, this is basically 1/3 of a double bass drum pedal. And I say 1/3, not 1/2, because you're missing the beater ball unit that goes on this thing. That's another third that's attached to the main pedal. And then of course the remaining third is the main drive pedal itself. The reason why I bring that up is because I'll be talking about how that relates to the price of this stand later. Now, as far as this thing here, it comes with a number of accessories. I mean, one of the things I like about getting a DW product is when you get it, man, they go all out. They give you all of the things that could possibly be relevant for that particular item. It came with all the required equipment to get the thing moving, of course. A couple of remote shaft universals, 2 different sizes of intermediate section, so that if you want a longer shaft, you can have one. The main hi-hat unit itself comes with 2 different lengths of pull rod, so that depending on where you want to plant that sucker, you can then adjust the intermediate section and the length of the pull rod, so that if you need your hi-hat to be high or your hi-hat to be low hat, you can select those options. And it comes with all the wrenches and tools and keys and things you'll need to make that happen. Now it's time to talk price. I had said before, the reason I had balked on this thing when it came out almost 20 years ago now was because of the price. It hasn't necessarily improved. It hasn't gotten any worse either, but it seems like a pretty pricey item, especially given its kind of built-in limitations, like not being able to get over a bass drum and onto the other side of the kit. However, if you look at the total cost of the components involved, and I actually did the math on this. Like I said, you're getting 1/3 of a 9000 series double bass drum pedal, which these days is running for about $900. So 1/3 of that $900 is $300, right? And then on the hi-hat side, you're getting 2/3 of a 9000 series hi-hat stand, which brand new is clocking in at about $450, and 2/3 of $450 is also $300. The overall package for the 9550 universal remote is sitting right around $600. So it makes sense. You're getting about $300 worth of hardware from one part of the DW universe and $300 worth of stuff from another part of the DW universe, and when you package that together, the price comes in at about $600. So it does kind of make sense given the totality of the parts involved in making this thing. And when I talk about maybe making this thing a little bit more universal, making it the kind of accessory that could be adapted to work with another manufacturer's, say, primary hi-hat stand, I also think that might do something about the price and make that a much more attractive product to anybody who would like to have a remote hi-hat and is not having very good luck with the feel, either because of the cable or whatever the problem might be. Certainly the drive shaft mechanism is an excellent way to get there, as long as there's not a bass drum in the way. Overall, I mean, I'm not sad about my purchase. I'm planning on getting 2 more of them eventually. At that price, I have to be a bit more judicious about how I throw my pennies round and about. Maybe if I think that's too extravagant, if I'm having good luck using my older 9000 cable in the position that it's currently in now, and I need to repeat that function on the other side of my kit or whatever, then maybe I'll look at scoring another 9000 cable remote and just living with it. None of that stuff is super critical. I'm doing a lot of this for funsies. I'm not taking this thing out onto a stage anytime soon. But overall, I'd say for what I needed it for and for what it cost me, it's definitely worth it. However, I'd love to have a sit down with the guys at DW in the engineering department and be like, I've got a couple of ideas, and you wouldn't have to tool up. You almost wouldn't have to tool up anything new in order to pull it off. We just have to go over to the parts department, grab a few things out of the bin, and I can show you how to put this together. And who knows, maybe as a result of this video, that day will come. I'm not going to bet a whole paycheck on it, but you never know what happens. So anyway, that's my new hi-hat. I'm Mike Lindsay. Thanks for coming out.